My mother-in-law sent me a box of refrigerated gourmet chocolates for my birthday. The next day she called and eagerly asked, "So, how were the chocolates?" I smiled and replied, "My husband ate every last one." There was a brief silence and then her voice wavered. "What? Are you serious?" Moments later my husband called me. On a steamy Boston summer morning, Amy Collins received an unexpected refrigerated package at her apartment, a gift of gourmet chocolates from her mother-in-law. The previous day, Patricia had called with a cheerful inquiry about the chocolates, and Amy had answered with a wry smile, "My husband ate them all." A stunned pause had followed on the other end, and Patricia's trembling voice had asked, "Are you serious?" Soon after that call, Thomas, Amy's husband, had phoned her. Amy's apartment, cooled by an overworked air conditioner, was filled with the low hum of technology as she worked on a website design for a new client. Her Macintosh screen displayed various graphics and text, a testament to her growing reputation as a freelance web designer. Just then, Thomas's voice broke in from the living room. "Honey, there's a message from Mom." Amy, having long grown accustomed to the unpredictable communications from her mother-in-law, Patricia, paused her work and asked, "What did she say?" Thomas, glancing at his cell phone with a small grin, explained, "She's inviting us to dinner at her place next Sunday to celebrate your birthday." Though Patricia always managed to maintain a courteous facade, Amy had never truly felt any warmth from her since the wedding. After 3 years of marriage, the cool politeness of Patricia's tone seemed to hide subtle barbs. "I'll go if you want me to," Amy offered, glancing at Thomas's delighted expression. Thomas, known for his incisive judgment as a financial analyst, appeared oddly oblivious when it came to family matters, especially concerning his own mother. "Your wonderful mother has finally accepted you," he said with a smile. "She even mentioned recently that you've become a good wife." Amy returned his smile politely, though inside she felt a seed of doubt. Since the day she married Thomas, Patricia had treated her as if she were the interloper who stole her son, while Vanessa, Thomas's sister who now lived with their mother after a series of brief, unfulfilling jobs, cast cold, envious glances that stung deep. Later that day, while preparing dinner in the spacious kitchen, Amy was lost in her thoughts about the upcoming visit. Thomas appeared from behind, wrapping her in a warm embrace. "What are you thinking about?" he asked softly. "Your mother," Amy admitted. Thomas's expression darkened momentarily before he brushed aside her concern with a measured tone. "She just wants us all to get along, Amy." This familiar conversation, repeated over many evenings, only deepened the growing tension between Amy and Thomas. In the early days of their marriage, Thomas had shielded Amy fiercely from his mother's interference, but gradually he had become enmeshed in his old family dynamics, leaving Amy to bear the weight of unspoken grievances. On the eve of her birthday, while Thomas was away on a casual golf outing with friends, Amy met her close friend Jessica at a local cafe. Over steaming cups of coffee, Jessica queried with genuine concern, "Are you really going over to your mother-in-law's house again?" Amy recalled Patricia's past criticisms, remarks about excessive salt in her cooking and unwarranted worries over Thomas's health. "Yes," Amy replied with a hint of irony, "but I know how much Thomas treasures his relationship with his mom." Jessica frowned sympathetically. "Family is everything to him, but aren't you his family too?" The question hung between them, heavy with implication. Amy's heart ached as she remembered the constant undercurrent of condescension that had always seemed to emanate from Patricia, and the silent, cold stares from Vanessa. The next morning, a crisp blue sky greeted Amy as she prepared breakfast. The intercom rang, announcing a delivery. Answering the door, she found the refrigerated package and upon checking the sender's name, realized it was from Patricia Collins. Her surprise was palpable. "Thomas, something arrived from your mother," she called out. Emerging from the bathroom with a towel wrapped around his head, Thomas inspected the package with curiosity. "It must be a birthday present," he remarked. Together they carefully unwrapped the elegant black box embossed with the words Chateau Chocolatey in gleaming gold letters, a signature of Boston's premier luxury chocolate boutique. Thomas, visibly impressed, noted, "These must be expensive. Mom is being generous indeed." Attached to the meticulously arranged assortment of artisanal chocolates was a small, handwritten card in Patricia's elegant script that declared, "Specially selected just for you." Despite Thomas's bright expression and his comment about Patricia's newfound acceptance, Amy's insides twisted with uncertainty. Though she forced a smile and promised herself she would enjoy the chocolates later, an uneasy feeling lingered. That evening, as Thomas returned home earlier than expected, he began preparing a special birthday dinner. Amy sat in the living room, relaxing on the sofa after a long day. When dinner was finally served, Thomas opened a bottle of wine and raised a toast to celebrate Amy's birthday. "Happy birthday, my love. I will always be with you," he declared warmly. After the meal, while Thomas was tidying up the kitchen, he found the chocolate box on the table. "How about some dessert?" he suggested, selecting one piece from the assortment. "I'm a bit full," Amy replied. "Maybe just one piece can wait until tomorrow." However, Thomas, charmed by the taste, continued to eat another piece, declaring it delicious. Amy laughed softly and said, "I'll try the rest tomorrow, just one more won't hurt." Soon after, Thomas headed off for a shower while Amy, exhausted by the day's events, retired early to bed. The following morning, as dawn broke, Amy awoke to find Thomas already in the kitchen sipping coffee and perusing something on his phone. "Good morning, birthday girl. Last night ended so pleasantly," he greeted her. Amy mentioned that she was finally ready to taste the chocolates. However, when she went to the living room, her heart sank. The chocolate box lay empty on the table. "Thomas, did you finish them all?" she asked gently. With a sheepish nod, Thomas admitted, "I'm sorry, before I knew it, I'd eaten every last one. They were simply irresistible." Though Amy felt a pang of disappointment, she attempted humor by saying, "Well, you can always get me more next time." Just then the phone rang. The display read Patricia Collins. With cautious curiosity, Amy answered, "Hello, Mom." Her mother-in-law's voice, unusually cheerful, congratulated her on her birthday and expressed delight that the chocolates had arrived. But when Amy recounted that Thomas had devoured the entire box, a heavy silence filled the line. Then Patricia's voice trembled as she asked, "Are you serious?" The call ended abruptly, leaving Amy unsettled. No sooner had she hung up than Thomas's cell phone buzzed again. He answered briefly, his face draining of color as he confessed in a shaky voice, "Amy, I just received a call from the hospital. I need to go immediately." Before he could finish, Thomas bolted for the bathroom, and within moments, he was found vomiting violently, his voice cracking as he pleaded, "Call an ambulance." Panicked, Amy hurriedly dialed 911. Rushing to Thomas's side, she gently touched his forehead and was struck by its abnormal heat. "It's all right, Thomas, the ambulance is on its way," she soothed, though her own heart pounded with dread. Amidst the growing cacophony of sirens outside, Thomas's phone lit up with another call from Mom, but Amy, gripped by a premonition of doom, did not answer. Paramedics soon arrived and quickly transferred Thomas onto a stretcher, whisking him away to the hospital. In the emergency room, doctors diagnosed him with severe dehydration and symptoms that far exceeded ordinary food poisoning. A detective arrived to begin a detailed investigation, questioning Amy about any unusual food or drink consumed the night before. "We received a delivery of expensive chocolates from my mother-in-law, and Thomas finished them all," Amy explained softly. The detective's focus then shifted to Patricia, who hesitantly mentioned that the chocolates were from Chateau Chocolatier. However, when questioned about any remaining packaging or evidence, both Patricia and Vanessa, Thomas's sister, became evasive. Vanessa even admitted that she had disposed of the packaging, claiming she couldn't locate it. As the detective gathered evidence, further tests on Thomas revealed traces of a potent toxin, a substance not consistent with standard food poisoning. The discovery set off alarm bells in Amy's mind. She recalled a series of past incidents. At a wedding reception, Patricia had served a special wine only in Amy's glass, leaving her debilitated and unable to take part in the festivities. At a subsequent Christmas gathering, Patricia had given her special cookies that rendered her bedridden for days. Even Jessica, Amy's longtime friend who worked at a law firm, recounted similar experiences after being offered unique food items by Patricia. Moreover, Thomas's recent enrollment in a more comprehensive life insurance policy, which shockingly named Amy and his mother as beneficiaries, seemed too coincidental to ignore. Desperate for answers, Amy and Thomas decided to confront the sinister undercurrents within Thomas's family. One quiet evening, While Thomas nursed his lingering illness in the hospital, Amy confided, "We must uncover the truth about your mother's intentions." Though Thomas hesitated, his expression darkened with resignation as he recalled previous warnings. A few days later, when Thomas was stable enough for discharge, the couple made the courageous decision to revisit Patricia's home, a place steeped in both order and hidden treachery. Late one afternoon, armed with determination and a spare key that Thomas had kept for emergencies, they quietly entered Patricia's meticulously kept apartment. The house, pristine and deceptively inviting, belied the dark secrets it held. Amy led Thomas upstairs to Patricia's personal quarters, where they began an unsanctioned search. In a neatly arranged bedroom adorned with family photos and trinkets, Amy methodically examined every inch. In a locked desk, which Thomas managed to force open, they discovered a series of documents that chilled them to the core. One file contained a copy of Thomas's recent life insurance policy, clearly indicating beneficiaries that included Amy and Patricia. Another document, even more shocking, was a separate insurance policy taken out in Amy's name with Patricia and Vanessa listed as the beneficiaries. A small inconspicuous mark was scribbled next to Amy's name on the contract, a detail that hinted at foul play. Under the dresser, Amy uncovered a small box containing photos of herself, each image marred by the eerie presence of medical paraphernalia, including needles and unidentifiable stains. Nearby, several small bottles labeled with exotic herbs and powders sat arranged in a neat row, as if part of an unholy experiment. Thomas, drawn to a dust-covered laptop on the desk, managed to bypass its password with a guess of his mother's usual combination. Once unlocked, the computer revealed a browser history filled with searches for undetectable poisons, methods of slow poisoning, and comprehensive guides to life insurance fraud. Shocked beyond measure, Thomas sank into a chair, his face pale as he murmured, "I can't believe this. Why would she do this?" Before they could process the damning evidence, the sound of a door creaking echoed down the hallway. Vanessa stood hesitantly at the threshold of the room, her face contorting as she realized she had been discovered. "What are you doing here?" she demanded, her voice laced with panic and defiance. Amy, her tone steady despite the turmoil, replied coolly, "We're gathering evidence, proof that you and Mom tried to poison Thomas." Vanessa's eyes darted around as if searching for an escape. "There's nothing here," she insisted weakly. Thomas, now enraged, stepped forward and declared, "Get out, Vanessa. I never want to see you again." In that charged moment, Vanessa's mask of indifference crumbled, revealing a torrent of bitterness. "It was never about accepting you," she spat. "Everything changed the moment you married her. Our plans, our future, were always about securing Thomas's wealth. You were never meant to be family." The room fell silent as Vanessa's words sank in. Thomas's hands trembled with anger and sorrow, and Amy's heart broke a little more with every passing second. Within hours, the police arrived at the scene. A detective, stern and methodical, questioned Amy once again. "We've recovered the chocolate box from the trash and found another package in Vanessa's car trunk," he stated, his eyes piercing. "Both have traces of a rare toxin." Amy's voice wavered as she recounted every detail, and the detective promised a thorough investigation. The ensuing trial was swift and merciless. Patricia was charged with attempted murder and conspiracy, receiving a 5-year prison sentence, while Vanessa, as an accessory, was handed a 3-year suspended sentence. Vanessa's lawyer argued that she had acted under the oppressive influence of her mother, a claim that resonated uncomfortably with the evidence. After weeks of uncertainty, Thomas was eventually discharged from the hospital, though his body bore the marks of the ordeal, weight lost, eyes hollow from the trauma. Determined to start anew, Amy and Thomas resolved to leave Boston behind. They moved to a small, welcoming town in Connecticut, where the pace of life was gentler and the memories of betrayal could slowly be left behind. In their modest new home, the couple began the arduous work of rebuilding their lives. Thomas had already resigned from his high-pressure job at a major financial firm, opting instead for a quieter role at a local company that promised less stress, even if it meant a reduced salary. Amy, meanwhile, set her sights on reviving her web design business, envisioning a future where creativity triumphed over past pain. One cool autumn evening, as the golden light filtered through the new house's windows, Amy and Thomas sat together on their living room sofa. In the soft glow of the setting sun, Amy took Thomas's hand and said quietly, "I'm so grateful I met you. Not eating those chocolates was the best decision of my life." Thomas smiled gently and pressed his forehead to hers. "Thanks to that, we discovered the truth and now we have a chance at a fresh start," he murmured. In that moment, with the weight of their shared history slowly lifting, they allowed themselves to imagine a future filled with hope and healing. A life in which trust and quiet happiness finally replaced the long shadows of deception and betrayal. As days turned into weeks and the pain of the past began to ease, Amy often recalled the series of events that had led to this new chapter. The memory of that humid Boston summer, the ominous phone calls, the detective's relentless inquiries, and even the shocking discoveries in Patricia's home, all of it had forged a path toward truth. Amy resolved that she would never again allow the manipulations of the past to dictate her future. With Thomas by her side and a burgeoning sense of inner strength, she embraced the promise of each new day. Their new beginning was not without challenges. The scars of deception remained, etched deep within the recesses of their minds, and occasional nightmares reminded them of the terror they had once faced. Yet, in the quiet moments, as they planned the interior design of their new home, or discussed the prospects of Amy's next web project, hope shone through. Every corner of their modest house echoed with the promise of recovery and renewal, a stark contrast to the oppressive coldness of the past. Even as the legal proceedings concluded and Patricia's and Vanessa's fates were sealed, the true liberation came from within. Amy found solace in the small everyday victories, a smile exchanged with Thomas, a supportive word from a friend, the gentle hum of a newly set-up computer as she began work on her designs. And Thomas, having learned the hard lesson of familial loyalty twisted by greed, became more determined than ever to protect the family he truly cherished. In time, the whispers of mistrust and the sting of betrayal gave way to a cautious optimism. Amy's laughter began to fill the rooms of their new home, a sound that once had been foreign in the wake of relentless suspicion. Thomas's eyes, once shadowed by doubt, now sparkled with the resilience of a man who had survived a storm. Together, they nurtured a fragile hope that would, over the years, blossom into a steadfast certainty that love, when tested by the darkest of circumstances, could indeed light the path to a future free from the poison of deceit. Now, as they sat side by side in their Connecticut living room, planning for a future that might include a little one to complete their family, Amy knew that every trial they had endured had led them to this very moment. A moment where the past's bitterness was finally being replaced by the tender promise of tomorrow. Their new life was just beginning, and with each shared glance and gentle touch, they reaffirmed their commitment to move forward together, leaving behind the scars and embracing a future filled with trust, laughter, and the quiet joy of second chances. And so, under the soft light of a Connecticut evening, Amy and Thomas quietly celebrated the triumph of truth over treachery, cherishing the knowledge that every painful memory had, in its own way, paved the road to a love that was now stronger, purer, and more resilient than ever before.